Welcome back to our study called My Foot Slips, and we're looking at Genesis 16. Today we're focusing in on verses 3 through 6. And the question is, who is good? Well, the answer that we have from Isaiah and Paul is no one is good. These verses are the contrast to verse 7 through 14, to the glory and goodness of the Lord. So you see, the Lord is good, He is glorious, He's awesome. People, no one's good. So it's an honest look at who we are. So in our story that we've been looking at here with Abram, Sarai, and Hagar, all these three people are the losers in the story. Really, no one wins in the story today. There's no happy ending, really. They're all the losers. Only God is the winner. So that's usually how it is when it comes to people. But let's look at a little bit closer look at this. So let's get into verses 3 through 6. First, we find contempt here. So we see Hagar, now the secondary wife of Abram. And she conceives. Didn't see that one coming, right? So what does she do? Does she celebrate with her mistress Sarai? Hey, look you got a child. No, she looks with contempt on Sarai. She looks down upon her because she conceived and Sarai can't. Sarai's getting older. Sarai doesn't look like she's going to have any children, but here, Hagar, boom, she's got a child. But as we will see, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree with this one, for her son will be filled with contempt as well. He hates Isaac when he's born. So Hagar, Isaac, like to look down on people, even though, which is amazing because she's an Egyptian servant. Isn't it amazing how quickly contempt can swell in the heart of a person? Hagar is an Egyptian slave, and now she's a wife of a rich man, and she's going to have a child. How quickly we forget where we came from, right? You were an Egyptian slave woman. And now, because some things have turned around, now you're going to look down on people? Come on. But that's how people are, right? As soon as you get out of the bad situation you were in, boom, we're going to start looking down on people. We're going to start judging people. We're going to start, going after other people just because, hey, I made it. I did good. Why don't you? And then we start looking down. So Hagar is an example of what not to do when God blesses you. God gets you out of the situation you were in before, starts giving you good things, can't start looking down upon people. All right, so that's the contempt. Next part we see is false blame here. So Sarai doesn't make out much better in the story here. The contempt of her servant makes Sarai bitter. And that bitterness lashes out in false blame and anger. She says, may the Lord judge between you and me. She says that to her husband, Abram. Like, what? I'm sure Abram must have been thinking, wait a minute, wasn't this your idea? I didn't come up with this plan. I was just doing what you told me, dear. Right? Again, if we're not careful, our hearts are quick to turn against our loved ones when our misguided schemes have been thwarted by God. It's easy to turn against those whom you love when the things you're trying to do don't work out. Well, we know we shouldn't attack God, so where do we fire our anger at? Anyone else in our sights? Usually that's the loved ones because they're nearest to us. Sarai's accusing finger should have been really pointed at herself. It's clear from chapter 18 that Sarai had a problem with believing with God all the things that are possible with God. Chapter 18 is the announcement of Isaac coming, and she laughs about it. So, she has an issue still. Even after this situation here, she still has an issue later on with the idea that God can do all things, that all things are possible for him. She's struggling with that belief. She has that belief, but help my unbelief kind of thing here with her. So, Sarai seeks restitution in Abram, but she gets none. Then she returns her anger toward Hagar and then drives her out of the wilderness. So she seeks after Abram, say, hey, you got to help this. You got to fix this problem. This is your fault, blah, blah, blah. And Abram's like, well, whatever. And then she turns her anger towards Hagar and says, it's all your fault. So get out of here. And she drives Hagar out into the wilderness. Now, you got to look at Abraham here because here you have like an apathetic deferment from Abram, which is really most of the guys I know, this is a lot where we fall, unfortunately. So you have Hagar's predicament and Sarai's anger, and all this could have been avoided if Abram would have just acted, if he would have acted like a husband. But instead he just says, yeah, do whatever you want to do. That's what he says to her. Do whatever you want to do. She's your servant. Man, come on. So Abram could have, according to the culture, returned Hagar to the status of a slave. He could have just put her back in the home as a slave instead of being like a concubine there. But even the culture would not allow him to kick her out of the house. The culture just said, no, that's not right. But that's what happens. He allows Sarai to drive her out. And think about Hagar as an Egyptian slave, pregnant and without a household to be in. She was in for a very rough road, if she would have even survived. But what's Abraham's response? Whatever. He shirks his responsibility that God gave to the husband as head, and then fails to protect Sarai again, and now he's failing to protect Hagar. So he's failing to protect everyone in his household. He messes up with Sarai again, and now he's got Hagar, who he's messing up too. So it's a lot of problems going on here, and we'll see how Abram fares later on. He still struggles, man. I tell you what, you read through the story of Abraham, and you're like, man, he struggles with this. But he's human. He's very much a human, and has his own issues, has his own sins, his own struggles. And you think, oh man, he can overcome this, and then he kind of disappoints. But thankfully, God is patient. God is loving. He's merciful. And Abram believed, but he had problems with belief. So it's just like the rest of us. But that's the end of our study for today. And next time we'll ask the question, does God care? And that's an important one for us to ask, especially when we're looking at this story.